Hello and welcome back to Ghosts of the Webway. So today we're going to be answering the question as to why you might start collecting the Harlequins faction. And that's really going to be split into two different parts. Like, why would you collect them, first of all, and why would you start playing them as a faction as well? So for the first part, why would you start collecting them? The easy answer is just look at them. I mean, they are a fantastic looking army. They look so dynamic and just mad on the tabletop. Even my wife, she's about as interested in our hobby as she is in Boris Johnson's bowel movements, but she agrees that they look great. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is the lore, the storyline. I mean, they are nomadic space elf ninja clowns. What part of that description isn't cool in our world? Yeah, I mean, it's such a mad idea with so much inventiveness and imagination, and it's great. So look into that lore as well. If you read the codex, there's some really nice little parts in there, little storylines in there. And if you read the Path of the Dark Eldar book, my favourite character in that is Motley, who is this single Harlequin who's just running around causing absolute havoc in Comarag, in the Dark City of the Dark Eldar faction. So that's what kind of got me into it, was just looking at them, thinking these look great, looking into the story, thinking these sound great, and that's kind of what got me collecting, what made me think this is a really, really unique faction. Now, why would you play them? This is a little more difficult. They are not the most competitive faction in 40k at the moment. That means they are not a tier 1 army like the current Space Marine meta, or there are plenty of other armies as well that do tend to do better at tournament play. But what they do have is an answer for everything. So the moment that your opponent does something, or the moment that you want to do something, you have an answer for it. And by that I mean, if you want to pick something up and move it about, there's a stratagem for it. Your opponent wants to move back and fall back and shoot you, well, you can shoot them anyway. Your opponent has a big unit of 30 orcs, well, I have a relic that basically means that you attack yourself. I mean, these kind of like troll-tastic elements to the army are just so much fun, and that's the main aspect of it, is playing the Harlequins is fun. You're not just going to be standing there moving a couple of models, waiting for a couple of things to die and then shooting some bolters and done. You have to really think about every element that you're going to do, and they reward that tactical finesse, that ability to think ahead and think about what you're going to do with each unit in your army. So that's part of what you need to do when you're playing with them as well, is you can't just think about it in terms of a net list. And in the end, you know, so many players, they look at things like TJ Lanigan's list and Jim Vessel's list or Scari's lists. They take those, they download them, they edit maybe one or two things, and then they play them on the tabletop. There's nothing wrong with that. Do that if you want. If that's the player that you are, fantastic. You know, all power to you. But if you want something a little different, if you want to really start thinking yourself about what you're going to do with the army, if you want to create like a couple of really simple different ideas and themes, then Harlequins are really great for that. They have about, 9 units in the codex, something like that. Most of them are characters. So you can learn every one of your units really, really easily and really well, which you might not be able to do with a codex of, let's say, 30 plus different units and different possibilities. And what that means, that simplicity, is in some ways deceptive, because again, you have to really, really think about every tiny choice that you make with the army. But that gives them this amazing character and this unique selling point, as it were, when you're putting them up on the tabletop. And you don't see them that often. There are not that many Harlequins players that come into stores. You don't, I mean, in comparison to, say, Marines or even just the other Eldar factions, you don't see Harlequins that often, which make them like really unique and interesting and fantastic to put up on the tabletop. And people often sort of come in and they go, oh, you're playing Harlequins. Okay, that's cool. And particularly pure Harlequins, which is what I'm looking at doing. I might be adding the Incarn in every now and then, but really looking actually at a pure Harlequins faction. You don't see it very often. Good, okay, so that's been about 5 minutes of me gushing about the Harlequins. I hope that you agree with me. If you don't, leave a comment. If you do, leave a comment. Why did you start collecting the Harlequins, or why are you thinking about collecting the Harlequins faction? What is it about them that really caught your eye or caught your attention? So next week we'll be looking at my first ever tournament experience with the Harlequins faction. I will be bringing a 1,000, then 1,500, then 2,000 point list to this pretty unique tournament here out in Bloomington, Indiana. And we'll be looking at how I did there, and I'll be going over my wins, hopefully, or my losses, and just explaining what I learned from it and how I want to improve as a player too. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. As always, like, subscribe, help me to make this the base for Harlequins players worldwide. Thanks a lot, and see you again.